Okay, Nick, so I'm using just a towel, carpet, whatever you can there that doesn't scratch the front. I laid out the frame itself just as labeled, but as you can see, this is the right. Well, let me start with these. This is the bottom, and that is the top. So the piece off to my left, because we're looking at it from the back, or I guess from outside the home looking in, the one that's labeled right will actually go to the left, right? So that once you mount it, it is on the correct side, which in this case will be the right side. I usually try to lay everything out since there's multiple windows or multiple frames that I build. So it really helps have everything kind of ready. The drill bit, I think this one was 5/64, and really just one this might be a little, it's not too big, but because I've used it in the past, but you could go a little smaller if you wanted to, just enough to pre-drill that hole, but let it secure and tighten up as you fasten it. These little T's, we'll use them later, but make sure that it's right side up. So then that way that indentation allows it to be curved. As you can see, the back doesn't have it, the front does. So I always try to lay them out in the right order. See, like this one was upside down, because as you build many or several others, you may actually skip, well, not you, but I know that I would skip that step, or maybe not notice it. And then, yeah, they give you the Loctite, but I use this one. So if you're gonna build more, this is probably a good option to get for all the other frames. I'm gonna pause there and get started with the building. All right, so for the next step, is you're gonna use the Loctite crazy glue we provided you. You'll see the reason why I like using this particular all-purpose glue. Loctite as well, but it allows just for better adhesion. Covers a lot more area and allows me to kind of really secure these more than really they probably have to. So it's only the sides that are going to be touching. Once the bracket goes in and you feel like you've got enough of it, I'm usually more generous on this step just because I really want to make sure that it adheres very well and sturdy and last longer in case of any kind of movement, so ground movements. So then once you have this laid out, we're going to start with the first corner, and you go ahead and drop it right in there. I'm doing this one-handed, so bear with me. But once there's a little notch on here that once you push it in, it will click right in place. You'll hear it, and if you don't hear it, you'll see it where you can't pull that out. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same for this side with the Loctite. Now, another method that I'm not sure if it's good or not, but I do this, and again, just because I use the Loctite all-purpose, is that I actually fill this instead of putting it on the bracket itself. I go ahead and place a nice generous amount inside the rail frame, which now allows me to not have really smother any excess or anything like that, or by handling it myself and touching it to get it all over kind of the frame. It wouldn't matter if you get the glue on the back of the frame because that's not visible, but there's a couple of frames that I actually put blotches in the front accidentally with that crazy glue Loctite they provide. So this is a little bit better to work with, at least from that perspective. So once you slide it in, I'm going to need both hands here. And you can see that it doesn't there. So now it clicked on. And even though that's wobbly, for now, it'll adjust once we put this bracket. So you will do the same for every corner, just like so. And then we'll get to the bracket part, okay? So again, this is the bottom, top, that's the right side, and that's the left side. One more thing, once you complete the 3 sides, I think on your end, actually you'll still have 4 sides even with the windowsill, because you'll still have a frame on the bottom, a little trim piece that will also attach. But if you notice, once I have the other 3 sides come together, rather than, you know, extending this or opening it up a little bit wider and kind of bending that, it doesn't hurt it, but I just try to avoid that. So what I do is I fill this up a little bit with Loctite, and then just slide it in both ends at the same time, and I'll come back to the next step. All right, now that the frame is pre-assembled, I mean, obviously you could set it up like that, but it needs those brackets to reinforce it and really to lock it into place into a right angle. So what I'll do is I'll place every single one of these right angle brackets inside the rails or grooves that are there. Just remember it says we want it flush, right? There's 2 sides to this bracket, one. To do that, and then I go ahead and place them all around. And then I get my drill bit, and here's where it gets a little bit, just, I guess not tricky, but just, you can drill a hole. There's movement on this, if you can tell, right? A little bit of movement. So in order for this to tightly bring it together, secure the angle, and keep it as firm and as close, and reduce the gaps here, or minimize the possibility of the gaps opening up. What I do is I usually drill the 2 holes at to the side, close to the side of the hole, to the, I guess it'd be to the area, to the hole where you want the screw to kind of pull and tug on that right angle, if I'm making any sense. So if you can tell, it is not, the drill bit is not fully centered. It is a little bit off to the side on the first hole. And you only have to go very lightly. If you go all the way through, so you've got to just drill, you know, maybe less than 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch on these 2. Otherwise, you will go through the frame on the other side, which did happen once on our end. I won't say names, but it starts with an N. And then once you do that, these holes, I kind of do the same as well, just to the side of it, just so that I can always insert the screw. Once you put the screws in, because the holes are off to the side, you can kind of, if you need to, you shouldn't, but if you need to, you can always play with the angle of the screw slightly, or, you know, either to tighten it to the side or kind of loosen it up, depending on the angle that you insert it. It will either pull or loosen up. It'll either pull on that bracket, or it'll release it slightly, but that's once you put in this first hole. So I'm gonna go ahead and drill these 2 holes, these 2 corner ones, and then the other ones are just reinforcement. But I'll make the adjustments with those first 2 holes here on the closest to the angle. Okay, so I went ahead and I tightened the first screw. I did use these Nest screwdriver just because it's much easier on the hands, and these screws should be drilled in manually. I think at first I was using a power drill with very little torque, but it still was damaging the screws, since these screws are not necessarily very durable. So you don't want to strip them, speaking from experience. But as you can see, the hole that I pre-drilled is now off to the side, kind of hiding, or not as visible in dead center. But what I do is, again, if I screw it in like so, then it will not pull on that corner to create that tension. So I go ahead and drive it at a right angle, and because the corner is pretty nice and tight, I'm going to go ahead and just continue driving that down by hand until you can see kind of tightening it a little bit. And you may wonder that this may not be fully flush, but you do have a little bit of an edge to play with. So again, this is not instructions that anybody necessarily provided. Some of the guys, actually some of the guys would do this kind of stuff maybe a little bit better, but and now that I've got these 2 corners, now I can drive those other 2 screws just to secure it. All right, now that that's nice and neatly secured, we go ahead and go to the other 4. You're gonna go ahead and pre-drill the holes as well, and then I'll do the rest and come back. And now that the 4 corners are all set, if you feel like there's, they're not fully flush, again, there's a little bit of room in the groove to work with some of that. And then again, these will not necessarily be completely flush against the wall, because the walls aren't necessarily all even. So once we put in the sealant, or the caulking, 100% silicone caulking is the best way to go. That way you can cover that, and with enough material there to put it all the way around the frame. And once you caulk that, then you will be able to mount it just by dropping it in or sliding it into the wall. Once you get to the next step, let's say well, before you put the caulking, make sure it fits in the window just fine. There's going to be a little bit of wiggle room, but once you set it in, if you are happy with it, and then what they tell you to do is go ahead and start with the top. So this is, let's assume this is the top, by the way, of the frame. So you start with the top. Once it's set inside the window, you go ahead and drill this right through here. It'll have to be one of these 4-sided drill bits or square bits to drive these screws right into there. And the screws are really just meant to go all the way to the side, so don't go too hard on it. And then you'll see the frame slightly shift up as you drill that first screw. You don't want to go all the way up and tighten it too much. Try to do the same on this side as well, so it's even. At that point, I get a level, make sure it's level, on the bottom. If it's not, you can adjust by, you know, tightening or reducing the screw, bringing it out a little bit to even it out. And then once you're satisfied with that, the level, then you go ahead and drill the bottom screw. And in this case, what you would do is drill only the middle screw. It has 3 holes on this particular one. If it has 4, then you would probably do, you know, 1 of the 2 in the middle. Again, to the side, but don't fully secure it, just kind of enough to where the top of the head of the screw meets the inside frame there, and maybe a little bit more, but not too much, because you do run the risk of, you know, driving a hole right through the frame itself, which wouldn't be much of a problem for 1 screw, but don't want to do that to all the screws, and that again, that loosens them up. So I am not speaking from experience. Once you tighten all those and drill the holes, obviously this will be mounted, right, as such. You know, just insert that panel and drop in the pins that came with, and also cover the holes towards the end, which is with those plugs that they gave you. Once you have dropped in the panel and are happy with the rigidity or how firm it feels against the wall, and also the opening of the panel as it, you know, as it goes up against the bottom and the top frame. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. I'll call you later and see how you do this weekend. All right, bye-bye.